Hello, and welcome into another edition of Golden Eagle Sports Report.
Tonight, we'll be discussing the number 15th ranked women's volleyball squad, as well as the Marquette women's and men's basketball teams, and even a little bit of club rugby.
So buckle up because Golden Eagle Sports Report starts right now. Marquette, I'm Megan Rock.
And I'm Nick Galley. Now, the women's volleyball team isn't the only sports team on campus that made the Sweet 16 this year. Marquette's club rugby team achieved that same feat on the way to its most successful season in program history. Joining us now in studio is President Roy Bowler of the Marquette club rugby team.
Hey Roy, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So this is the most successful season that we've seen in program history. For those who don't follow club rugby, can you explain some of the season highlights?
Well, first of all, you should start following club rugby. And second of all, we had a great season this year. We were able to make it to the Sweet 16 of the national tournament. We outscored our opponents in the regular season 363-33, so over 330 points. We went undefeated in the regular season, as we mentioned earlier, and we bonded as a team. We just had a great year.
That's impressive. And then to my understanding, you've come a long way, like you said, since 2015. And that was a winless season for you, correct? So how have you been able to improve so much, so drastically in a short period of time?
I think it's got to boil down to the commitment we have from all the guys and all the players on the team. We have a lot of practices over the year, and people stepped up, showed up to all of them. And we have a lot of dedication amongst our guys. Guys want to leave the program in a better place than it was when they started, and they've done a great job of that. And also, we've had great commitment from our coaches and great leadership from them as well, and our captains.
That's great to hear. And then now, do all your players come in playing rugby, or do you teach them? Do they have a little bit of rugby background from other sports?
Yes, so absolutely. We have a fair amount of guys that did play rugby in high school, and even some guys that have grown up playing rugby their whole lives. But also we get a lot of guys that played football in high school, that played soccer in high school, things that can translate pretty easily to rugby. And a lot of guys that, just have played nothing but want to, play some in college and want to be part of the team.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about women's volleyball's successful postseason run and women's basketball's hot start to the season.
Over the weekend, the number 15 Marquette women's volleyball team swept the High Point Panthers in straight sets in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Following the sweep, it was deja vu for the Golden Eagles as they swept the Cincinnati Bearcats. Marquette is now headed to the Sweet 16 for the first time in program history and will face University of Illinois Friday at 11 a.m. in Champaign. Here's what Coach Ryan Tice had to say about the team's accolade.
It's truly special. We certainly have bumps and bruises along the way, as every team but the way they handled themselves throughout the year and the way they care about each other and work for each other, I couldn't be happier for them. I'm very proud.
Now with some insights on women's volleyball, I want to welcome in one of our volleyball analysts, Dan Avington. Dan, thanks for being here.
Always great to be here, Megan.
All right, so let's get right down to it. It was the first time Marquette hosted the NCAA tournament in program history. What was the atmosphere like Friday and Saturday night?
Well, the Owl was absolutely rocking on those nights, Megan. It was a really impressive atmosphere for Marquette. They had a lot of other athletic teams showing up to support the women's volleyball team. The lacrosse team took up pretty much an entire section behind the home court side, and the women's basketball team also showed up. They were wearing spandex, and they had pretty much the volleyball pregame uniform on. So it was really nice to see other Marquette athletes coming out to support the team. And then there were a lot of fans there as well. Cincinnati and Illinois State might have had the most crowd of the entire weekend, but Marquette fans showed up too.
That's great. Well, let's take a look at what head coach Ryan Tice had to say about the atmosphere there on both Friday and Saturday night.
We couldn't hear much because I think the lacrosse section behind us was more than enough energy, so we appreciate those guys. I think it was, when things are rolling, confidence is high. So it's typically not a matter of when you have a big lead. It's more about, can you keep your composure when you're down or things are frustrating. So I don't think we had too much issue with that. I think we were playing with some confidence.
Well, as we can tell from what head coach Ryan Tice said, Dan, the confidence was really a booster from that atmosphere there. So after 2 straight sweeps, what were the positives of the first and second round of the NCAA tournament?
Well, there were a ton of positives, to be honest. Marquette didn't drop a single set to 2 really impressive teams in Cincinnati, and I forget who the other team they played was.
High Point.
High Point. How could I forget that one? I was on the call with Chris and Jack, and those were really great games for Marquette. They looked really great on the offensive end, but I think most impressive was the defense that Marquette exhibited. The back line of Martha Konovadoff, and then a lot of players rotating in, Lawrence Beckman, Sarah Rose, and then hitters, Hope Wirch and Anna Hawk looked really impressive. They covered the middle of the court incredibly well, and I thought the defense and the serving were the main parts that looked really great.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of key players right there. So who do you think was the MVP of this Golden Eagle squad, especially this weekend?
Well, Megan, it's really hard for me to give just one person the MVP because there's so many players that make a huge difference on this Marquette team. Hope Wirch, I think, is probably the biggest X factor throughout the season. Coach Ryan Tice has said that as well. And Jenna Rosenthal is another one that he pointed out as a player that's pretty crucial to this team's success because you're going to get big performances out of Allie Barber and Anna Hawk, but if Hope Wirch and Jenna Rosenthal are having good games, then Marquette's going to have a good game. But I think that players that are pretty underrated are the 2 setters. I think Lawrence Beckman and Sarah Rose have had phenomenal years. Sarah Rose especially coming in as a sophomore. They started to rotate in a 6-2 offense, so they have 2 setters as opposed to most teams who just have 1. So Speckman sees less time, but when she's out there, she's incredibly crucial to this team's success. She's the floor captain, so she's the one who's calling out who's going to get to the ball, who's going to be on which pin, and she's the one that communicates with the referee and the coaches while she's out on the court. So I think Lawrence Beckman has been the best vocal leader, and that's why I would say she's the MVP.
That's great. And then one last thing is, what does Marquette need to do to take down number 3 Illinois this weekend on the road in Champaign?
Well, that's a loaded question, Megan, because Illinois is the number 3 team in the nation. They have some of the best hitters, some of the best setters, and the best liberos in the league. So they play in the Big Ten Conference. The Big Ten is an incredibly difficult league to play in because I think 6 of the top 16 seeds maybe came out of the Big Ten. So that's a really difficult conference to play in, and they only had 3 losses on the season. So you can see why they're ranked number 3 in the nation. And I think the biggest thing for Marquette is going to be defending the middle of the court again like they did this past weekend, because if Martha Konovadoff and the rest of the back line is able to get those diving digs and set up all the hitters, and that's going to be absolutely crucial.
Definitely. Well, always great insights, and it's great having you here, Dan.
Always great to be here.
And now taking a look at the Marquette women's basketball team, their recent schedule has been somewhat dormant, playing only 3 games in the past 2 weeks. To start off, the squad took down UIC 96-32. That game was played at Fiserv Forum due to the unexpected car crash that occurred at the Al McGuire Center. That accident would then force the team's matchup with UWM to move to the Klotchke Center in Milwaukee, where the Golden Eagles finished off the Panthers 83-74. Finally, Marquette hosted Michigan in the Al McGuire Center, winning that game 85-74. The squad now improves to 6-1 on the season. And now let's catch up with John Steppe, who was on hand to cover Marquette's win over UWM.
Marquette has won its last 7 games against the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. But head coach Carolyn Keeger is probably wishing it came a bit easier Wednesday in the 83-74 win.
To be honest, I don't think we played a 40-minute game. I don't think we stayed in it and stayed composed.
The 9-point margin is the closest Marquette has come to losing to an unranked team this season.
I mean, we just beat ourselves. Like, you know, we missed a lot of chippies. We gave up a lot of wide open 3-pointers. We got to be better than that. Like, you know, hone it in. If somebody's hot, we gotta shut them down. So I think this was more of a game that I think we got a little lax, and we got to keep up the intensity all game long.
Blockton is the new record holder for field goals made in her career after scoring 28 against the Panthers. But Keeger expects this to be one of many new records for Blockton.
Break a lot of records this year.
UWM joins the long list of teams befuddled by Marquette's full-court press. More than a third of Marquette's scoring is a result of 25 UWM turnovers.
You know, I thought our press got us going,
But Keeger will be the first to admit the defense needs some work.
but they got too many open looks on the backside of our press and after our first rotation. So we'll fix that on film tomorrow and hopefully prepare because we got a great Michigan team coming into our house on Sunday.
Reporting from the Klatschi Center on UWM's campus, I'm John Steppe, Marquette Wire Sports.
Team then welcomed the Michigan Wolverines yesterday to the Al McGuire Center, and they showed up with a great performance.
Check out some of the highlights from that match and my post-game interview with head coach Carolyn Keeger.
Marquette loves the transition game. Heidemann, Marquette's leader in 3-pointers, knocks the first one down. No good. Heidemann with a steal. Pulls up. Yes! Natisha Heidemann pumped up. Like Blockton, Erica Davenport, and one.
Really had that many today. She sinks one right when I said that. I don't know if they just didn't know who was covering her.
Blockton gets to the bucket easily. Finishes. Alizea Blockton the other way. Yes! Blockton swishes home. And now Roush taking it the other way. Heidemann smacks it away.
You know, we knew Scout really well. We paid attention to the details. Second half, I'm really disappointed. And we got to become a better team. We got to finish games, and we got to understand that it's 40 minutes. And we let up, and that's on me, and we got to fix that. I thought we controlled the pace really well. We're going to have to do that. I thought we double-teamed the post phenomenal tonight. And obviously, Mississippi State's even bigger than Michigan. But we got to finish the game. We're not going to be able to go into their place and be able to pull off an upset playing, 20 minutes.
Welcome back to the locker room. I'm pleased to welcome into the show one of our women's basketball analysts, Zoe Comerford. Zoe, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Megan.
Let's get right into it. Let's take a step back for a second. Right after Thanksgiving, Marquette hosted UIC at the Pfizer Forum. Although Marquette took the dominating victory, what was it like for players to play in an NBA arena this early on in the season?
So it's definitely a unique experience because not a lot of women's basketball programs get to play in Pfizer Forum, a 17,000 capacity arena, NBA arena too, and the fact that they took home the 96-32 victory, which is 64 points, that's really impressive, and it didn't really rattle them that much that they weren't playing at the Al McGuire Center.
And then Coach Keeger, going after that game, she said that champions adjust, and really we saw Marquette adjust, but how did that help in the squad's later match against UWM?
It definitely helped them a lot because I think that it kind of got them adjusted to not playing in their home arena, even though they were expecting to. So having that change of scenery maybe just kind of helped them adjust a little bit better, and they were kind of those champions adjusting because they did win by such a huge margin.
Yeah, and then the squad didn't play there in the Al McGuire Center either. They actually played on UWM's campus due to the car accident at the Al. And the score of that game was close. Do you think maybe the two venue changes had a little bit something to do with the impact on the team and their wins?
I definitely do. I think it had a huge impact because I think just going from Fiserv and then going to UWM's arena and not playing at the Al kind of got them a little confused. And also, but Alizea Blockton had 28 points. So it was 4 Golden Eagles got in double digits, so it was really a kind of an interesting dynamic that they did well on their B game, but they could have done better.
Definitely, when you're supposed to have 3 home games but only have 1. So the Golden Eagles eventually landed safely back in the Al McGuire Center on Sunday to defeat Michigan. So what were your overall thoughts on that win?
I was on the broadcast for that one, and I thought that they did a phenomenal job in the first half. They were shooting 56.8% in the first half, but then the second half was astronomically different. I think in the fourth quarter, they just did not perform the way they could have. They definitely had a lot more turnovers and just were shooting bricks. I didn't know what was really going on with them. They just were not shooting the way they normally do.
Definitely, and Coach Keeger said that they need to learn how to play the 40 minutes, but they only played the 20 yesterday. Do you know how that's going to impact going into Mississippi State on Thursday?
Definitely when you're playing a team number 6 in the nation, Mississippi State, undefeated, and you're going into their home arena, you need to come out and play 40 minutes. Exactly what Coach Keeger said. You cannot just play that half. Against these harder teams, you really need to learn how to play as a cohesive group for the 40 minutes you're on the floor, because you only get those 40 minutes, you don't get any more than that.
And Mississippi State's a tough component, so as Marquette enters this new portion of their schedule, the squad heads both south to battle number 6, Mississippi State. What will the Golden Eagles have to do in order to win not only in enemy territory, but against one of the best teams in the nation?
Obviously, we talked about how they really need to play a full court game, but they also really need to keep up their shooting and not get too ahead of themselves. If they have the lead, they really need to keep with their shooting and keep doing what they've always done. They can't stop and just play that 20-minute first half, because that's what they've been on a trend recently doing, just playing that first 20 minutes. But you have to play that full court game if you need to upset this number 6 team.
Well, great, Zoe. Always great insights from you and keeping us up with women's basketball, so I appreciate you being here on the show with us. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the men's basketball team and their recent performance against some of the top programs in the country. You won't want to miss anything, so stick around, because Golden Eagles Sports Report will be right back. Welcome back to Golden Eagles Sports Report. Once again, I'm Megan Rock.
And I'm Nick Galley. After a couple wins this past week, the Marquette men's basketball team is on a 3-game winning streak.
The first win came on Tuesday night against Charleston Southern. Marquette took the game 76-55, behind 17 points from Marcus Howard, as well as 13 points and 7 steals from Joseph Sartuni.
Then the big matchup came over the weekend when Marquette hosted the number 12 Kansas State Wildcats. Megan Rock was there to recap the action.
The Golden Eagles are flying high after upsetting number 12 Kansas State 83-71. The squad has yet to lose a game at Fiserv Forum. Junior guard Marcus Howard led the Golden Eagles as he finished with 45 points, which is second to his career high 52. Despite having a rough 72 hours prior to the game, Howard sank 19 free throws, which broke a men's basketball record for free throws made in a game.
That he was born to score? Marcus is a very, very unique player. And he and Sam on our team have an incredible amount of responsibility.
After his final appearance on the court, Howard and Coach Wojciechowski shared a moment as they embraced on the sideline.
I told him I was really proud of him, to have the last 72 hours that he's had and to come out in obviously a huge game. Our first sold out. I don't know if it was sold out exactly, but it felt sold out. And to deliver on the stage like that, the way he did was something that made me real proud to be his coach.
According to Wojciechowski, the aggressive environment at Fiserv Forum added to Howard's outstanding performance.
Because every one of these games is huge, and our fans were a huge part of our win today.
The Golden Eagles now prepare to host University of Texas El Paso Tuesday night. Tip-off is set for 7:30 p.m. Alongside Jack Phillips, Megan Rock, Marquette Wire Sports.
We now welcome into the studio Chris Reisner to talk some men's basketball. Chris, I know you're ready to talk some basketball, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick. Always a pleasure. Anytime I get to talk basketball, it's a pleasure. So thank you both for having me on.
So, Chris, I'm going to start you off with a big question right here. Everyone wants to know about it. The Charleston Southern game went about as expected, but everyone is looking at this Kansas State game. How did Marquette stun Kansas State this past weekend?
Well, you two were there. You don't need me to tell you that Marcus Howard was the story. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 45 points from the guard. And the crazy thing, that's not even his highest scoring output in a Marquette uniform. He had 52 against Providence last year. He was so efficient on the night, got to the free throw line seemingly at will. He kind of just is reestablishing himself. If anyone forgot after the freshman year he had where he led the country in three-point percentage, well, he's reminding everybody that, hey, I'm one of the best point guards in the entire country.
And Chris, I was actually at that game, and everyone, like you said, was in awe of Marcus Howard and his scoring. But how was he able to put up so many points, especially given his size?
Yeah, so Marcus isn't the biggest guy on the court, obviously. They list him at 5'11". I tend to think he's more around 5'9". He's extremely quick and explosive. You've seen him develop this past offseason. He's posted things on social media where you see him doing windmill dunks at his size. That's absolutely ridiculous. And then, of course, what makes him so special, Coach Wojo talks how he's such a unique player, and that's his ability to create space for himself and get open shots. In his freshman year, he was the most efficient three-point shooter in the country. So if there's something I want to demonstrate, if I have like a ball or something. So what makes Marcus so good, he's such a lethal three-point shooter. When he's out at this three-point line, and guys can't afford to give him an inch of space. So they hug up on him, he shot fakes and goes right by. And it's that combination of the three-point threat and his quickness and agility getting to the rim. That's why he set a record 19 free throws made on 21 attempts in that Kansas State game. It's the combination of the deadly sharpshooter and explosive game to the rim.
Yeah, I mean, Howard's got that great two-way offensive game, really makes him a special player for this program. And the Golden Eagles look forward to a game tomorrow against the University of Texas El Paso. And then, Chris, the big game this weekend against University of Wisconsin. What are your thoughts on those two matchups?
Well, before I get my thoughts, our producers can take this ball back. But University of Texas El Paso, high-octane offense. It should be an exciting game for the fans. Two really athletic, up-and-down type teams. I think Marquette just simply out-talents them. I don't see Texas El Paso giving them much of a game. But on the other hand, Wisconsin, the big in-state rivalry, a game everyone looks forward to every year. It'll be a sold-out crowd. Can't wait for that atmosphere. And the key to winning that game for Marquette is stopping the big man, Ethan Happ, one of the best players in the Big Ten. Get this, he leads Wisconsin, a really good program, in points, rebounds, blocks, and assists, and field goal percentage too. So he's, without a doubt, their best player, so skilled in the post. After his sophomore year, he had one career basket that came outside of the paint. So he gets everything done in the paint. He doesn't care about this modern jack-up threes, NBA and basketball where everyone's standing on the perimeter. He's going to go inside. You know what he's going to do, and you still can't stop him. So it's going to be up to Theo John controlling his foul trouble issues and Matt Helt checking in there, putting some minutes in. Key to Marquette to win this game, stop Ethan Howe.
Well, great, Chris. You talked a little bit about Wisconsin, but also the atmosphere there at the Fiserv Forum. Wojo mentioned that the fans are really a big part, so with the sold-out game, hopefully Marquette's able to pull away with the win. So with that, we're going to take one more break, so stay right there. And Chris, you're going to stay right here, actually, because you're going to deliver the final take.
I am indeed.
And you're not going to want to miss that final take from Chris Reisner. We'll be right back.
Every regulation collegiate basketball court has the same dimensions, 94 feet long, 50 feet wide, and a couple of baskets at each end 10 feet high. So when it comes to the venue, why would that make such an impact? I'm talking about home court advantage, and don't get me wrong, it certainly exists. When you think of the most iconic venues in the country, the most hostile environments, you may think of Assembly Hall or Cameron Indoor. But perhaps some of the most underrated home courts in the country have been here in Milwaukee for some time now. And if you don't trust the words of yours truly, don't worry. I brought out the calculator last night because numbers never lie. So here we go. Both the Marquette men's and women's basketball teams are undefeated at home this year. In fact, over the past 4 seasons, the women's team has a 35% increase in win percentage at home compared to the road, and even had a record-setting undefeated streak at the Al McGuire Center that lasted 1 day shy of a full calendar year. In the same time frame, the home court boosts the men's likelihood of victory by 30%. And dating back to 2001, the overall win percentage at home for the men is almost 87%. That's on par with the likes of Kansas and Michigan State, some really good programs. And for 17 consecutive years now, Marquette has also been in the top 25 in attendance, the only non-football school to be in that top quartile every year. And it doesn't take an expert to know that the kind of energy that comes while playing in front of a big, raucous crowd is profound. The type of energy that helps a team upset number 12 Kansas State this past weekend. And I would be remiss if I failed to mention that this isn't the first time the Golden Eagles have preyed upon some Wildcats. So whether it be Kansas State last weekend or the Red Rivals from about 90 miles west of here coming to town this weekend, it bothers me when I hear a lot of pessimism about the team's ability to compete with the best. Attribute it to the crowd, travel, change in routine. Whatever it is, there's something nostalgic about defend home court. Kobe Bryant once said, passion is the fuel for success. So don't ever count out a Golden Eagle team in Milwaukee, because home is where the heart is.
Wow, Chris, that was a great final take as always.
Thank you, guys. I'm just happy it's basketball season, am I right?
I mean, you are most definitely right. Certainly an exciting year for the Golden Eagles. And on that note, we're out of time for this week. This is our final show of the semester, so we'll be back in January. Once again, I'm Nick Galley.
And I'm Megan Rock. Good luck on finals and good night, Marquette.